On Wednesday the 8th of January 2013 we flew in from Iquitos after 5 days to return to Lima for the last time before flying back to New Zealand. The next day we decided to take a taxi to the Larco Museum, then Chinatown for lunch. We skipped the National Museum as we had heard there was nothing much to see there. At the Larco Museum we were greeted by a Peruvian hairless dog which has its origins in pre-Inca cultures. Now I can relate to them on two counts, being hairless and being the dog's body. Once inside the museum, we learn how the Peruvians came from Africa 40,000 years ago and developed their civilization over the last 5,000 years, and they're compared with the development of other ancient civilizations, namely China, India, Mesopotamia, Egypt and Mesoamerica. The museum, founded in 1926 by Rafael Larco, is said to house more than 50,000 pots from around Peru. At this point, potitis sufferers may be excused, so please return in 100 years. So starting at pot number 1, this is a big pot, and pots number 2, 3 and 4, well, they're small pots. Pot 5, a dead man with a very large enough said. Pot 6, too much information. But wait, there's more. The artifacts here in this museum showcase chronological galleries that provide a thorough overview of 40,000 years of Peruvian pre-Columbian history. Here's a stone mortar, 1250 BC. A high-ranking nude male with a small you-know-what. A female deity with bird and serpent features and a vagina. Individual portraits of the ruling elite. "4,000 years ago, Peruvian societies moved from a fisherman hunter-gatherer culture to an agricultural one. They discovered ceramics and modelled their early designs on birds and animals. By 1000 AD, the Peruvians had developed textiles. The cult of the dead was a very important practice, and they placed the dead in these mantles. Also, by 1000 AD, the Peruvian society had reached levels of sophistication similar to ancient Egypt, working in silver, gold, copper and alloys. And they had panpipes which play even to this day. The music seemed to be in every taxi we went in, much to Lillian's annoyance. The museum has a big variety of stuff like these offensive weapons. This preparation of a body for the afterlife. These necklaces made from gemstones and seashells. And these gold ornaments. They also practice skull deformations to make themselves look more beautiful. What lures many visitors here is a separately housed collection of pre-Columbian erotic pots that illustrate, with comical explicitness, all manner of sexual activity. Not to be missed is the vitrine that depicts sexually transmitted diseases. Looks like even in ancient times that if you play with fire, you might get burnt. After looking at an excavated tomb, we headed off to Chinatown.
Para el colesterol, hígado graso, la presión alta, la stevia.
Sí, la voy a llamar yo ahorita. ¿Ya no?
Pachina. We're in Chinatown, but I think Stephen's the only Chinese person here.
I can hear Chinese music. Chinatown in Lima is quite different to the Chinatowns we've been to in places like Vancouver, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and so on. For a start, there's a noticeable absence of Chinese. The next test for rating a Chinatown is to sample the food there. First up, some fried rice.
I said I can't see too many Chinese people moving to the room.
Well, with food like this, I'd never move here. I just went to the toilet here and you can't put the poo papers down the toilet, you have to put them in a container, but the top of the container was smeared in poos. It was really lovely to use. Great. What did you say?
There's more Chinese people work out some of the trash.
Yeah. I didn't hear. I didn't hear what you say.
I said there's more Chinese vegetables.
Yeah. This Chinatown had its origins in the 1850s, and in 1909 part of it was demolished by the government due to its rundown state. A 20-year ban on Chinese immigration at this time didn't help either. Today, Chinatown has shrunk from its former origins and it still plays host to several Chinese associations. From Chinatown, we walked north a few blocks to view Mayor Plaza and the Cathedral of Lima. There was a service at the cathedral, so only members of the faith were allowed in. After that, we caught a cab and went back to the hotel. The next day, on Thursday the 10th of January, we decided to visit the ancient temple of Pachacamac. It's located 40 kilometres southeast of Lima in the valley of the Lurin River. We contracted a driver for the day to take us there and back and show us around. We did this through the hotel. In the taxi we were serenaded by panpipe and Richard Clayderman music, but Lillian wasn't impressed. Are you enjoying the pan flutes? No comment. The music switched from pan flutes to Richard Clayderman. Are you enjoying it?
No. This goes from bad to worse.
Our first port of call on arriving was to head into the museum. Excavations here started in 1896 and the usual items of daily life are on display. Women's clothing, for example. Just outside the museum is the ruins of the administration centre, the oldest building on the site, built around 200 AD. Pachacamac is a huge site, and the best way to get around it is by car. Here we're looking at some remains of pyramids, built around about 1000 AD. The workers here were doing temple restoration work and preparing a system to light up the ruins at night, but their hairless dogs seem to be more interesting. These dogs only speak Spanish. The Huari occupied this site around 800 CE. And after the collapse of its empire, Pachacamac continued to grow as a religious centre. The majority of the common architecture and temples were built during this stage, about 800 to 1450 CE.
El apellido es Rolex, pero con S, no como el reloj Rolex, pero este con S, Rolex.
The driver couldn't speak any English and continuously spoke to us in Spanish, as though we could understand him. But of course, we couldn't understand anything. These residential ruins date back to the Inca period, 1470 to 1533 AD. Between 600 and 1533 AD, this area served as a cemetery. Next, we ascend to the Temple of the Sun. It's a fairly steep climb up to it as well. The Temple of the Sun was built during the Inca period of 1470 to 1533 AD. It was made up of terraces and platforms of adobes. Human sacrifices dedicated to the sun and various other offerings have been discovered there by archaeologists. I thought we'd given up climbing to temples. Last time, yeah. As usual, our taxi driver slash guide continued to speak Spanish to us in the hope that we would understand, but he just seemed to wave his arms around a lot.
Pachacamac, nivel de mar.
Come on, what are we waiting for? And now that we're at the top of the hill, it's time for all the blah 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 blah. Pachacamac was the most important religious citadel in the Peruvian coast for over 1,500 years during the pre-Hispanic period, AD 0 to 1532. The citadel is a complex made up of diverse types of buildings such as temples or oracles, houses, etc. from different periods of time. The Curacas or chieftains consulted the oracle of Pachacamac by means of long pilgrimages from all over the Andes, often as part of an important ritual. Pachacamac was a feared god, and one of the powers attributed to him was the creation of earthquakes. It was believed that a mere shake from his head could generate cataclysms. The temples were built in his honour. The first settlers in this area go back to 200 BC during the formative period. Later, toward the beginning of our present era, people from the Lima culture settled in the site and built the first temples. However, the influence of this first complex was only at a local level. The origin of the sanctuary goes back as far as AD 650, the Middle Horizon period, marked by the domination of the Wari culture. During this period, the sanctuary began to attract pilgrims from several central Andean regions. Later, between AD 1000 and 1450, the late intermediate period, the area went under Ishma rule, a local ethnic group who built a great part of the religious citadel. Large stepped adobe pyramids were built, and the main temple, also built in that design, was painted with colourful fish and bird motifs. With the arrival of the Incas, the sanctuary's high priests adopted the Tawantinsuyo beliefs. A temple in honour of the sun was erected, as well as a palace for the virgins dedicated to the sun, both essential in any Inca ritualistic site. Titanic.
And life get any worse.
Only if you're on the Titanic. This is Willie's music. On the way back to our hotel in Miaflores, our driver took us for a tour of Barranco, his hometown. Still speaking Spanish, he told us of the many famous points of interest in the town. Barranco district was founded on October the 26th, 1874. It's the smallest district of Lima and was always an attractive summer resort for middle and upper class residents of Lima and foreigners. It's known by its bohemian character and the home of various Peruvian writers and artists. Today, it has an artistic character and hosts rock, Latin and Creole music concerts at its many bars and pubs.
The Condor
Yeah.
family.
We walked across the famous Bridge of Sighs, made famous by a Peruvian song. Tradition says that anyone who makes a wish and crosses the bridge for the first time without taking a breath will have his wish granted. That night we decided to sample some more Chinese cuisine at a place 5 minutes walk from our hotel. We gave it 2 stars out of 5. What was that?
I said it's just the skin, but there's nothing in it.
Right. Probably nothing in these either. We're the only ones at the bus stop now. Yeah. We ran out of things to do in Lima and we couldn't get back to New Zealand any earlier because all the flights were booked out. We spent our time getting on buses to see where they would go. Of course, we couldn't read Spanish, so we couldn't read the sign on the bus anyway. How's the bus ride?
Great, when you're standing on the step, hoping you don't fall out the door.
I think we might have to make our way to the front door, otherwise we won't get off.
Won't they open this?
I don't know. Oh, we're going around the corner. Okay, we're on the wrong bus. I think that was the wrong bus we got on.
Yeah, I think so. It was purple in the front, but red on the side, and
Should have been red on the side, purple on the side as well, but it wasn't.
it got ripped off.
Yeah, ripped off. A few more bus rides, a bit more window shopping, a few more meals, and then we started our long journey home.